Welcome to this short documentary on 2D animation. I will be taking you through the pioneers and the techniques that were created, along with modern day developers and how it has evolved from being a fantastic invention to something we, as a modern day society, use and see in everyday life. The dictionary definition of animation is the technique of photographing successive drawings or positions of puppets or models to create an illusion of movement when the film is shown as a sequence. The persistence of vision is the notion that the retina is connected to the brain and that an object fades instead of disappearing completely when it is removed from your line of vision. We see objects where they are and where they were. If we see a vast amount of images moving, then we can put them all together in your mind. This gives the illusion of movement. The zoetrope was first created in 100 BC in China by Ding Huan. It was then officially created by William Horner in 1833, who named it the Daedalon, but it was publicly referred to as the Wheel of the Devil. This is because it was the first animation device known to man. It involves putting a strip of drawings into a cylinder-shaped device, which has slits at the side. When spinning, if someone looked through the slits, it seemed as though the drawings were moving. The phenakistoscope was created by Joseph Plateau, with him starting to plan the invention in 1829 and then finishing it by 1841. Slightly different drawings were drawn in the different sections of a circle, and when the circle was spinning, the drawings seemed to come to life, as the different drawings seemed to connect and animate. The first flipbook was created in 1868 by John Barnes Lynette. The first flipbook was named Kineograph. When a number of drawings are flipped quickly, the drawings simulate movement. It was the first invention to use a linear sequence of images. The praxinoscope used the same principle of the zoetrope, but placed mirrors in the centre for people to watch instead of watching the drawings through slits. This made the drawings more clear and sharp for people's viewing pleasure. It was invented by Charles-Émile Renaud in France in 1877. The kinetoscope was an animation device that was designed for only one person to watch at a time, by Thomas Edison in 1894. Similarly to a projector, it shows images from a film strip in front of a light with a high-speed shutter. This was an illusion of animation using perforated film. One of the first animators to use cel animation was Earl Hurd in 1914. This is when an artist draws onto blank film to create images, which allows you to create virtually anything. First used by Len Lye in 1914, the drawn-on-film technique is where a sheet of transparent material has objects or drawings drawn onto it. Each scene would be drawn on different film sheets, as then it would be used on other cells to reduce the amount of time it would take to produce each scene. Rotoscoping was invented by Max Fleischer in 1915. Rotoscoping is when animators trace over footage each and every frame. It was used in live-action and animated films, but it has now been replaced by digital devices. Max Fleischer originally used this in the series Out of the Inkwell. The main developer for 2D animation has to be Walter Elias Disney. The first ever key animation made by Disney was Steamboat Willie, made in 1928. Some say that Steamboat Willie was the original Mickey Mouse, who is now one of the most famous fictional characters in the world. The short animation, which featured a mouse on a steamboat, was shown to the creators' wives and Disney's employees. At the release, the crowd went wild for the cartoon. It was terrible but wonderful for people in the 1920s to see, as very few things like it had been done before to this grand stature. Exactly 10 years later, Disney made Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. This was one of the first animations to focus on individual character personalities, as Disney wanted each of the dwarfs to be noticeably different due to their actions, personalities, and body language. The cel animation was a massive success, as very few people had done anything like it before. The employees had put actual makeup on Snow White, just as if she was a real person. The attention to detail was something that had never been seen before in animation. In 1941, Bambi, one of the most famous animations known to man, was created. This again shocked audiences, but with the storyline. An animation had never grasped at people's heartstrings as much as Bambi did. When the mother got shot, and the shot was clearly hid and blood was visible, this was not something that people were used to seeing in animation. It got a mixed cascade of reviews, as the audience's reaction was new to the animation world. If we skip forward around 50 years to the modern age of Disney, we will notice a lot of technological advances have been made. In 1995, the release of Toy Story took the world by storm, being inspired by a short cartoon called Tin Baby, which shows a small toy being scared of new toys being used by its owner. Toy Story shows the life of toys going through the fact that their owner is growing up and they are no longer being needed. It took nearly $400 million worldwide, which broke world records at the US box office. Warner Bros. Was founded in 1903 by the four founding brothers, Harry, Albert, Sam and Jack. Warner's cartoons started in 1930, which were made by Disney alumni Hugh Harman and Rudolph Ising for Leon Schlesinger. Then, skipping forward to 1936, when Porky Pig was created, and Daffy Duck created 1 year later, who then debuted in the 1937 short, Porky's Duck Hunt. In the 1940 short, A Wild Hare, Bugs Bunny made his first appearance. These are now Warner Brothers cartoons' three most famous animated characters, and are recognised by millions of people all around the world. In 2003, Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny starred in a film which showed real-life actors and animated characters acting together fluently on screen in Looney Tunes Back in Action, directed by Joe Dante. Nick Park is the creator of the company Aardman, who are now famous for creating cartoon series such as Wallace and Gromit and Shaun the Sheep. They create them using clay models and stop-frame animation. Wallace and Gromit first debuted in the 1989 short film A Grand Day Out. Multiple Wallace and Gromit cartoons were released after that, as the cartoon was a success, and in 2005 a feature film was made, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. This is one of the first cartoon creations where one of the characters, Gromit, communicates to the audience merely by movements, as he doesn't talk. He communicates with the audience and Wallace by movements of his eyes and eyebrows, something similarly seen by Woody in one of the scenes of Disney's Toy Story. Nick Park made a point in an interview that all of the cartoons have references to Alfred Hitchcock films, as the majority of the animations have some kind of comedic suspense to them. Terry Gilliam made the cartoons for Monty Python, a comedy show most famous in the 1970s. The show, even if now seems a bit random and rather unfunny, back then was seen as not only comedic genius, but also a rather risque form of entertainment. The short animations that were shown in between sketches were made by cutouts and photographic stills. This means that a character was made up of 2 to 5 pieces, and then as you moved the pieces and took the pictures, it would appear as though the character was moving. Gilliam stated in a documentary on the animated works of Monty Python that with cutouts you have limitations to what you can do, so the characters need to have quick sudden movements. This is because most of the cartoons have a violent feel about them. The light needs to be as high as possible and the field as wide as possible to reduce the shadow effect of the cutout. You can get cutouts from magazines and newspapers, said Gilliam, and you just have to layer the right pieces together. So you can find a head in one place, a body in the other, layer them together, and you've made a character.
Into shot, pushes it across. Below the shot I put the sound effects I'm going to use, wheel squeaking, things like that.
Matt Stone and Trey Parker created South Park, a violent cartoon popular with teenagers and young adults. The pilot episode, which aired in 1997, was made from simple paper cutouts, much like the Monty Python cartoons. However, after the pilot episode, South Park rose up as a cartoon alone, and as technology was more advanced during the creation of this than it was during the making of Monty Python, the show is now made using a piece of software called Maya, which is more commonly used to create video games. The pilot episode took a crew of 8 3 months to make, and it was only a 22-minute episode. Now, however, it only takes them 45 days to make an episode. They stated that it was good for them to use cutouts at the beginning, as the cartoon was very violent, so it wouldn't have been as funny or as popular if they had used actual child actors. Neither of them could draw, and it was less time intensive. The process of making a South Park episode now is to record the voices, animate the characters to the voices, storyboarding and artistic works, and then the animation. They use Maya as it keeps the paper cutout look. It even creates the shadow that paper would make. You can manipulate images, and you can see different layers of the characters. To render the images, Celluloid Studios have built a rendering farm. Rendering meaning to take a computer image and make it into the finished image. The rendering farm consists of nearly 350 processors.
There's actually a science to animating.
As animation has gotten more popular as time has gone on, we have now come to a point in society where we now use animation in more ways than just films. We use it in video games, for advertising purposes, and children's TV. With Adventure Time, the show is aimed at children and pre-teens, but like SpongeBob SquarePants, Ren and Stimpy, and Rocko's Modern Life, it has attracted a sizable older fan base, especially among parents, teens, and nerds of advanced ages. It is made from drawings and takes about 9 months to produce one episode. To begin with, the notes are created, then it is sent to the storyboard team to create the storyline and jokes. The storyboards are assembled into an animation, where the cleaned up drawings, poses, and shots appear along with dialogue, which takes a few more weeks to build. Then it is sent to Korea to the company's contacts. After 3 months, the final product is sent back to America, and then they check it for mistakes. Afterwards, they add voices, music, and special effects onto the animation. Dungeons & Dragons originally inspired it, as the creators used to play it a lot before creating Adventure Time. Bitmap images, also known as raster images, are made up of pixels in a grid. Pixels are picture elements, tiny dots of individual colour, that make up what you see on your screen. All these tiny dots of colour come together to form the images you see. Most computer monitors display approximately 70 to 100 pixels per inch. The icons on your desktop are typically 32 by 32 pixels. In other words, there are 32 dots of colour going in each direction. When combined, these tiny dots form an image. As bitmaps are resolution dependent, it's difficult to increase or decrease their size without sacrificing a degree of image quality. When you reduce the size of a bitmap image, you must reduce the amount of pixels. When you increase the size of a bitmap image, the image has to create new pixels. A bitmap image is limited to being a rectangular shape, as the pixels are all square and all the same size. Vector images are made up of many individual scalable objects. These objects are defined by mathematical equations rather than pixels, so they always render at the highest quality. Objects may consist of lines and curves. You can edit the image without destroying the basic object. You can increase and decrease the size of a vector image to any degree, and your lines will remain crisp and sharp, both on screen and in print. Fonts are a type of vector object. Another advantage of vector images is that they're not restricted to a rectangular shape like bitmaps. Vector objects can be placed over other objects, and the object below will show through. Vector images primarily originate from software. You can't scan an image and save it as a vector file without using special conversion software. A flash animation, or flash cartoon, is an animated film which is created by Adobe Flash or similar animation software, and often distributed in the SWF file format. The term flash animation not only refers to the file format, but to a certain kind of movement and visual style. With dozens of flash animated television series, countless more flash animated television commercials, and award-winning online shorts in circulation, flash animation is currently enjoying a renaissance. Flash animations are typically distributed by way of the internet, in which case they are often referred to as internet cartoons, online cartoons, or webtoons. Web flash animations may be interactive and are often created in a series. A flash animation is distinguished from a webcomic, which is a comic strip distributed via the web, rather than an animated cartoon. The user creates an animation effect by varying the size, color, and rotation of an object between the key frames.